why homelessness never gets solved in America. I live in one of the most progressive cities in the United States, Portland, Oregon, and we have an outright epidemic of homelessness. There are people who it ranges from the mentally disabled who cannot advocate for themselves and can't even log on to a computer or go into a building and talk to another human being without having to worry about them being made a ward of the state and put into a mental institution. This is a fear with a lot of mentally ill people. They don't want to be behind bars, quote unquote, in a psychiatric institution. So they self-medicate. When they should be on psych drugs, they're doing methamphetamines or fentanyl or tranq. Tranq and fentanyl kind of go together. Tranq allows the fentanyl to last longer as a dopey kind of a feeling for the addict. Tranq is actually a horse tranquilizer, and we all know what fentanyl is. The next kind of person is the drug addict. They're not mentally ill, but they are a full-blown drug addict. They have no hope of ever getting clean without massive amounts of help. And even then, they're probably never going to stop using drugs. This is another part, a big problem of the homeless. Then you get into what I would call softer part of homelessness. And there's nothing soft, but it would be teenagers who have run away from home for whatever reason. There's a large LGBTQ plus homeless community because if your family doesn't accept you and you run away and you have nowhere to stay, you become homeless, obviously. So there are a lot of teenagers and younger people who couldn't deal with life at home for whatever reason. Then you get into the adults who actually have jobs. People that are working, they have a difficult time finding an apartment. Now, you can rent a room in a house. Usually that's available to a lot of people, and it's cheaper than trying to get a one-bedroom apartment. A one-bedroom apartment or even a studio in Portland will run you anywhere between, and this, again, is using online resources. I'm sure you can find them cheaper if you found somebody with an apartment complex who doesn't advertise, but the ones that do, Craigslist, apartments.com, other websites, Reddit, other places that you can find rentals, what you start to see is that the rental prices, the average person would have to spend $1,100 a month, roughly. They probably could get away with $1,000 if they had no internet, if they kept their light bill down to nothing. They didn't heat their house very much because everything is electric heat pretty much here. And you have your garbage bill and your water bill as well. Very few people have natural gas, especially in newer places and apartments. It's just safer. It's cheaper. There's electric heat is a predominant thing in apartments, probably all over the country, but here especially. Most apartments here don't have air conditioning. They're starting to put in those wall air conditioners, but they don't really you kind of have to buy your own air conditioner. I'm not saying they don't build new homes or new apartments without them, but a lot of the places that you will be trying to find does not have central AC or even one in the wall. So you'll have to buy one and put it in yourself if you want your house not to be, 95 to 100 degrees for about 2 weeks out of the year. So it is unaffordable for a person who's making $2,200 a month or $2,300 a month or $2,500 a month. I don't know how that they could spend $1,100 or $1,000 a month on a rent for a one bedroom or even a studio. You'd have to pay a third of your salary for rent, correct? That's what we've always been told. So that's one that you'd need to make $3,000 to $3,200 to $3,300, $3,400 a month. This doesn't sound like a lot, but when you kind of get to the end of it, it's about 40 grand a year, 40 plus a year. Most warehouse jobs, forklifting jobs, picking and packing jobs, retail jobs, even lower management jobs, they pay right around there, $2,800 a month, 15, 17, $20 an hour, 21 an hour, 22 an hour. And the tax rate here for somebody making that amount of money is about 20%. So about 19 to 20, 18, 19, 20% roughly, depending. So working class people get rinsed. Working class people get absolutely rinsed in our society. And homelessness is one of the ways that the working class get fucking destroyed. Homelessness affects the working classes. And I don't mean that the working classes become homeless. I mean, and they do, obviously, at a higher rate because they don't make as much money. And money is the most important thing when you're looking for a place to rent or buy, obviously. But you have the effects of homelessness, generally speaking, more than generally speaking, affect working class neighborhoods. So we have things in Oregon, in Portland, called bottle drops. And you, for every bottle or can you find, you get a 5 cent, and I think they even do 10 cent for bigger glass. I can't remember, but it's 5 cents for every bottle. So if you bought a case of water, every bottle is they charge you an extra 5 cents on each one when you go into the store and buy a soda or beer or whatever. So you can it's an encouragement to recycle, obviously. The problem with this, and I think you can probably see it before I even say it, is homeless people have an underground cash-based economy that has, and they are able to feed themselves, buy their drugs of choice, buy alcohol, cigarettes, etc., food, entertainment, whatever, with the bottle drop money. Oftentimes you will see trash cans, particularly in my neighborhood. I live in a very working class neighborhood. When you get up every Monday morning is our trash day or whatever, you'll see that your trash has been gone through, your recycling has been gone through. There will oftentimes, depending on the mental state of the homeless person, they'll tip your trash over. Or I've cleaned up garbage many mornings going to work. I'm always usually one of the first ones to leave. So if they have it overnight, tip something over, I'm the one who gets to clean it and then go back inside and wash my fucking hands before I go to work. Anyway, homelessness affects the working classes. These bottle drops are not in middle class or wealthy neighborhoods. They are in working class areas in the city. They are centrally located for a multitude of reasons, but nevertheless, they are often in neighborhoods and on main streets that are connected to, that are veins running through a working class neighborhood. Also, homeless people tend to pitch their tents under bridges on the sidewalk. Now, there was recently, 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, a gentleman in a wheelchair under the Americans with Disabilities Act sued the city of Portland, saying that he couldn't use the sidewalks with his wheelchair, and because of the homeless. And this was Portland's responsibility to house them and to get them off of the sidewalks. And this is not particularly enforced to the nth degree. Portland is a large city, but it's not that big. And so these places, and by the way, the homelessness affects the downtown area, business areas, which is certainly not working class. It affects other areas too, where there's social services, bus lines, etc. But none of those places are out in the suburbs or in any particularly never in gated or anywhere near gated communities, anywhere near suburbs, anywhere near the middle class. The middle class only has to deal with it when they go downtown for whatever reason, or when they're driving to work in their Teslas, because they fucking virtue signaled here hardcore when Teslas came out. I don't know how they feel now, but they only deal with them when they drive to work and drive home. They'll see them and they're everywhere, like they are in every American city. There is the infamous blue tarps all over the place. And because Portland rains, we're in the middle of the rainy season right now, people always have their tarp, a little area set up with all of their junk that they've collected that they're trying to take someplace to recycle, or they're just hoarding because they're high, or they're collecting their cans and their bottles so they can buy. Fentanyl here can be purchased for dollars, $3 a pill, $2 a pill. It's so cheap that you only need 20 or 30 bottles to get high. Think about that. So at my work, in the work complex I work at, I'm very close to a police department, and we still have homeless people going through our garbage and taking out bottles and cans or whatever they can find. And this is, unless you lock your dumpster, and I've seen dumpsters get broken open, I've seen dumpsters crowbarred open, cut open, smashed open, the tops of the things crushed in, I've seen all kinds of shit. So, but they've created this underground economy, and it's allowing this to continue to persist. These people then don't have to get on social programs. They don't have to go and force themselves into social services and force themselves perhaps to get Social Security and these are the drug addicts I'm talking about predominantly that are not mentally ill. They have become mentally ill because of their drug use. Methamphetamines and fentanyl completely rearranges your brain, but they are dealing with it. These are the people that collect bottles, see them riding around on bicycles. They collect, and they're not harmful to anybody really. They rarely attack anybody the violence with homeless is, they're more concerned about getting high and trying to find a place to crash for the night, right? That first response doesn't come and tossle them out of there and get them out of there. So this underground economy is a problem for solving homelessness in Portland. Another thing is they use the bus lines, and we call it the TriMet, and you don't have to pay to use the TriMet. It's called not a delinquent fare, but it's one of those things. I know I had a friend of mine who drove for TriMet and would tell me about this. Homeless people tend to get on the buses, they don't pay, and they have all their cans, and they're out of it, they're dirty, they're filthy, they stink, and they're mentally gone because they've done so many drugs. And this affects the working classes. The working classes are the ones whose children take public transportation to school. They are the ones themselves who get up in the morning and have to take a bus to work and back. They're the ones that have to take the train. They're the ones that are affected by this most of all. And I'm not saying middle class people don't take public transportation. I'm not saying that at all. But working class people depend on it. There's a difference. When you're middle class, you can afford, hey, I can take the train in, or I can go to drive my car and park and share and park and ride. No problem. And if something goes wrong, I just get to work. No big deal. I'll just drive to work. Working class people often don't have that choice. So they're absolutely reliant on public transportation, which is adversely affected by the homeless population. And the reason the homeless population continues to grow, and it doesn't get beds, and it doesn't get rehabilitation centers, and it doesn't, is because Portland has every year can't come up with enough money. The state will give them money, they'll get grants, they'll do all this, they'll hire a nonprofit, and the nonprofit still pays salaries to their people. So the nonprofit is just it's not for profit, but it still pays their CEO and their people in charge. They don't do an adequate job. This is why you don't privatize everything. There should be, and I've said this before, there should be an Oregon State homeless department because it's at that point. Now, there's been some recent court rulings. I'm going to wrap this up quickly. That's why I'm kind of shortcutting a lot of this. There's been some recent court rulings. The Supreme Court said that you can arrest people for being homeless. That was actually based out of a city in Oregon, kind of close to Portland, but not, outside of Portland. This also coincides with the anti-camping laws that they've started to establish in Portland as well. And one of the ideas that they had when homeless blew up and around, well, it didn't blow up, but it was starting to be progressively worse after, 2017, 2018. The city gave homeless people tents. They actually said, here, they went around and gave them tents. They tried to put porta potties out. And of course, the porta potties would get destroyed, pushed over, etc. But they never got the full amount of porta potties out to the homeless community either. They were supposed to do hundreds of them, and they ended up having like 40 of them. This is what happens when you privatize everything and you depend on the private sector. They will charge you $7,000. They'll charge you whatever they need to charge you for the things you're buying. So the new mayor is trying to find solutions for this. But just remember, homelessness in America does not get solved. George Carlin made a joke about keeping the working class, keeping them so they don't, that's like a threat. Oh, look, this could happen to you if you don't go to work. That might be part of it, but I think it's more that rich people and middle class people simply don't deal with it. They do not deal with it on a daily basis, whereas working class people do. And the working class always gets fucked over by capitalism. It's written in stone. It must happen with capitalism. The working class must get fucked over. Anyway, keep all what I'm saying in mind. Homelessness will never be cured until it becomes everybody's problem. Thank you very much. Bye.